Hi, I'm Charlotte Hayden. I'm 16 years old and I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was 15 years old last year. This is my experience with the Rigo style brace. When I was diagnosed, my Cobb angles were 55 in the lumbar and 42 in the thoracic. I was a Risser 4 and a Sanders 6. And when I was first diagnosed, they immediately told me that I would need surgery, and I should get it like within the next 6 months. They didn't really have much hope for me, but then right after that, I met with a Stroth physical therapist who encouraged me to consider bracing, and that's how I started my path of researching and looking into bracing, and that's how I ended up here. So I was really nervous about the idea of surgery and especially facing such a invasive and permanent surgery immediately with little thought. So I was really excited to try bracing instead to try to at least hold off or reduce the amount of surgery I would need. So because of the severity of my case, I really wanted to see really the best orthotist I could find to ensure that I could get the most amount of correction in my brace, which could help even reduce my curve. So that's how we found the National Scoliosis Center. This was the first brace I had. I wore this 23 hours a day for about 3 months, and my in-brace correction was a 60% correction, so my curves are in the 20s in brace. And I had perfect compliance, as you can see, and it paid off because at my 3 month check-in after wearing that brace, I ended up seeing a decrease in my lumbar curve. And so it was now in the 40s and out of critical surgery range. But unfortunately, my thoracic curve had increased by a few degrees. And so we decided to try a second brace. This brace was almost the exact same as the first one, except that it had targeted the thoracic slightly more and derotated my ribs a little better than the first one. And I also wore this one 23 hours a day and with perfect compliance, and I continued on wearing that. It was around this time I got really involved in a large school project where I was designing custom clothes that accommodated my brace. I was really big on wearing my brace. I never missed a day because I was just glad to have something I could be doing about my back. But then, as time went on, we were approaching summer and we were beginning to consider options for surgery again. Because my curve had decreased and was now in the 40s, I was actually a candidate for more options for surgery than when I was first diagnosed. So we were considering a selective fusion or maybe a hybrid surgery, which would involve using VBT on my lumbar and using infusing my thoracic. And although we were considering pushing off surgery more and continuing to brace to see what happened, we were really afraid of missing out on this window and then ending up right back where I started when I was first diagnosed. So after a lot of consideration and research, we decided to go ahead with a selective fusion surgery. Um, so I had my surgery in June 2025. I'm currently 5 weeks post-op. I fused T3 to T11 and my surgery went perfectly fine with no complications. And as you can see on my x-ray, I had really successful correction. I'm really glad that I chose to brace because when I was first diagnosed, they told me that they were going to fuse T3 to L4, but I was able to fuse significantly less and stay in the thoracic area of my spine, which greatly increased my mobility, and long term, I will have a lot less pain. Um, and I was really, really successful, and I'm glad I did it. Thank you for listening to my story. Have a nice day.